I just want to talk about a question that comes up very often in the welding community, and something I've dealt with for years and had to, learn from. And that is like truck rig, like what I'm in right now, versus welding skid versus trailer. I've done all three. I've done multiples of all three. I've built so many skids for myself and welding trailers. I currently have a welding trailer and this welding rig, and then another truck that was a welding rig in different configurations. And I've owned several. I started with trailers, actually. And I just kind of want to go through some pros and cons of all of them and kind of give you an idea of what you should do, possibly. It's all about what works best for you, and if you want to pull a trailer every day, then that may, whatever, that's fine. And there's a lot of people that do that. There's a lot of people that carry enclosed trailers, and I have an enclosed trailer too, actually. It's more of a long-term job thing. I do a lot of different things. Like, it just depends on what you do too. Like, I do a lot of residential, tons and tons of residential stuff. So it's handy to have an enclosed trailer to put there, and you're not limited to one or the other. I have, all three right now. I have a skid, I have a trailer, I have two trailers, and then I have this truck as a rig, and then I have another truck that could be, if I wanted it to be, it's diesel, flatbed, all that. It's not four-wheel drive. This one is four-wheel drive, but that's another thing too. But let's get into it. So whenever I worked at a tire shop for years, I got into welding, and I traded a really nice firearm, but I traded a really nice firearm I didn't want to get rid of for my first welding rig. It was an old Miller Blue Star, and it was a kind of a chintzy trailer. Didn't have much of anything on it. Spot for bottles. Didn't have bottles. Anyway, I eventually put a toolbox and a couple things on it, and also kind of want to go down with some of the components that you're supposed to or need to have. Just ignore that if you heard it. Man, you can do a lot with a machine, some good leads, a toolbox, and bottles. Oxygen, acetylene, oxygen, propane, chemtane, whatever. You can do quite a bit with that. The next component would be an air compressor. It would be a big, kind of depends. It's always positive to have an air compressor, air tools, airing up things. It's very, if you're using like a needle gun, oh my God, great for needle guns or needle scalers. And it's great for, you're running a bunch of 70-18, needle scale that, and then you can blow it away. Really great that's more like industrial stuff, or, it depends on what you're building. If you're building, I build like metal decks, you're building something very structural, you may want to run some 17 on something, you know what I mean? And, but anyway, when I first started getting into the welding thing, the trailer was perfect for me because, I had a full-time gig. It was a side deal to do it, and I charged a hilariously low number of like $35 an hour or something really, really low, $30 an hour or something like that to start out. Because I knew I couldn't, I had to charge a bit to cover fuel and everything else too. So very low number, very funny. Of course, this is like 9 years ago, I think, 8 or 9 years ago, at least coming up on 9 years, I think. So long time ago. No welding certs. No insurance at the time either, but it was very simple little stuff. Definitely get insurance. It'll save your, I've never had to use it, but it's always great peace of mind. Plus you can advertise, hey, I'm insured, and certified, like I am now, insured and certified, and then some decent equipment like this beautiful SA you can see behind me. Plus lots of other stuff too. It all kind of depends on what you want to do, but then I have a skid. I've had several. Right now I have a Hobart Champion on a skid, Elite on a skid with a big toolbox, and it has enough room for a compressor or bottles, and I've had both on it. A little DeWalt, like 4-gallon air compressor is what was on it, and it was enough to run a cheap plasma cutter, in addition to needle scaler and everything else. So it really doesn't take a huge compressor to do that for you. What you need to run, unless you want to gouge, and then you really need a big compressor to gouge, 15, 20, cubic foot per minute, really, and 20, bigger the number, the better. I have a big engine-driven air compressor now that does, it can do, it can do that for sure. Plus a Trailblazer that, it's for gouging. I don't want to gouge off my SA200, but heard a lot of stories of not doing that. You shouldn't do that. So I've heard some people do it, but I don't want to fuck it up. It's a beautiful machine, let's not do that. It's very expensive. I mean, I'm sure armature or whatever gets screwed up. Let's not, let's use a Trailblazer that was made for that. Actually, funny enough, 25 more amps than this machine behind me too. So it's a higher amperage. It's made for it. Let's use it for that, So that's what I have it set up on a trailer for gouging. But not that I do a lot of gouging, but I have the ability to gouge, which is also important. It's also like the ability to weld aluminum. I can weld aluminum. I have the equipment for that. I hate getting a phone call of, hey, can you do this? And you just don't have the equipment. You may be able to do it. You may have done it in a factory, your factory job, like I've worked several or whatever, because they have all the equipment, but you don't. And I hate that. And that's a big part of it too, of like not having the, maybe having the ability, but not having the equipment. That really sucks. It really, really does. That's another big thing. And that's going to happen in the beginning. Like for a long time, I didn't have a torch. And I had people go, you have a torch? No. And you feel like a freaking idiot, because you couldn't afford to get everything set up. Now I have a couple fixtures and everything. It's not a big deal now. Or a wire feeder. I have a big wire feeder back here, a big LN25 for my machine, and all kinds of stuff now. But it's in the first year or two, it's not gonna be like that unless you get a big loan, which I don't advise you to do. It would be an investment in yourself, and that's for you to determine. I did not do that. I chose to work with very little for a while before it finally started catching on and be able to evolve. And lots of trading too. Even this machine behind me, I did some trading for. Some money too, but some trading. I mean, try to be parsimonious, or in general I kind of am parsimonious. So so I mean, you got to spend money when you need to spend money, but then sometimes you don't, maybe not have to. So but anyway, the Trailblazer I had a good deal on, stuff like that. I mean, Craigslist of all places for that one. But I mean, because they're usually like 9 or 10 grand, they're very big. A skid, if you have a tractor, and I built skids before when I didn't have a tractor, and I used a A-frame. I made sure that the center of gravity was in a certain spot, or picking up from all four corners is the smartest move, because it doesn't really matter so much about the center of gravity per se at that point. So you can kind of get away with like an A-frame kind of deal, and that worked out really, really well. That was a pretty good deal, pretty good system for me. I've even had skids on trailers, which is kind of best of everything in a lot of ways, because you could put a skid in the truck goes down, you can put it in a different truck, or you put it on a trailer. You can haul it with a rented truck, a borrowed truck, whatever, and you can go make money, if you don't have 2 trucks, which I would advise to have 2 trucks. I had 3. I just recently got rid of one because I never used the darn thing. So I think 2 is definitely, kind of a minimal thing. I really believe that. One's an 2001. It's nothing, fancy. The one I've been now is a 2018. It's still, 5-6 years old or whatever. So nothing, it doesn't have to be a brand new truck, but if you have a tractor or skid steer, it makes a lot of sense to have a skid. And then I've also had it before too, where I've had a tractor in a field with like a machine or a skid, and then I'm welding off of that, building fence and stuff. Skids are the most versatile for sure. What I found is you're limited to the size that can fit in a truck bed, and then you got to make sure everything can work off that truck bed. And then if it's on something different, it needs to work off of it too. Like I have a flatbed truck, a skid on that truck may not work, and this isn't going to get a skid. It's got all the crap in the back, but it won't work in a regular tub rig like this one is, for example. So you have to kind of pick and choose with that. And then you're also limited to weight. My tractor can lift like 2,200 pounds, which is a bit, but you can't, you say that, and that's true, but you also got it 4 or 5 feet out. Those numbers change drastically. The further out it is, it changes drastically. I've lifted more with that, but not 4 or 5 feet out on a skid. I think the skid's usually about 4 foot wide. Some pretty heavy wall tubing, and then your fork skid go in that tubing, or however you want to build it. Some people build them on a channel. That's fine too. Whatever. I would just advise something that captures the fork. So it's not like just like a piece of channel with a fork, because it can, you know what I mean? If it leans off of it, it can fall off. Or if you do channel, maybe put some flat bar in there or something, it'll catch it. You know what I mean? Something it captures that fork, just in case there's any. You know what I mean? So I don't know. If you do a big machine like this or something like sideways in a truck bed and you have a dedicated truck, pulling this out is a chore. It's a all day thing, especially with toolboxes, whatever you want to do. If you want to get everything out of this truck bed and put it in another truck, yeah, good luck. You're not going to be there today. You know what I mean? Or, you know what I mean? Maybe later in the evening if you start pretty early. It's a chore. So if you did something like this, a big rig like this, I mean, if you had a big A-frame sitting around with an I-beam trolley, and you had another SA or a big machine sitting there, you might be able to do it in a couple hours, maybe. Yeah, I mean, for the machine anyway, but not for everything. You need, all your tools and torch and everything. No way. But for the machine, maybe in a couple hours you could swap the machine out that it was having issues. But it'd be even easier just to have a trailer with another machine on it, just in case something happens. It's an old military thing. 2 is 1, 1 is none. And I do wholeheartedly believe that. I really, really do. So that's why I have 2 trucks. I have multiple trailers and all kinds of stuff. 1 tractor, but it's fairly new. So that's another thing to think about. Just, of course, in the early days, you'll be lucky to have 1 machine, or maybe 1 machine and then a big enough generator that could power a welder, which I've done a lot of that, especially in the beginning. But even now, it's kind of funny, like even with all the equipment I have to just run a plug-in machine off of a generator or off of a welder generator. It's really funny, actually. But I mean, of course, I do a lot of residential work, and sometimes I'm 200-300 feet away. I think 300 feet's the farthest I've gone on an extension cord. But I also have a machine that's made for that, the Fronius Transsteel 2200. So it's made for 330 foot of 120 cord. And I've about used that length before, welding on a boat dock, actually. So on a walkway on a boat dock. So some of the stuff is really far away, and you got to do that. Because having 300 foot of lead, actually 600 foot of lead, yeah, right, you know what I mean? My goodness. So that's another thing too. So usually I keep about 100 foot of each on like what I have on this truck, but then I have a couple of 40 foot sections and this and that I can add on to it, and I can get closer, close to 200 foot of hot pretty easily, with it, which would be more like an industrial thing, or run the feeder or something like that, which is fine. I'll do that if the job calls for it. It makes sense for me to take the job. I will do that. That's another thing too. Like, you get called to do something and you got to figure out how to do it, kind of like right now on the cheap, whatever. Or maybe you get like a down payment and then you're able to buy a piece of equipment you had to have for that job, like a mag drill or whatever. And I've done that before too. Just kind of skinning your teeth for the first few years. And then, eventually it starts really working out and not being such a big deal anymore, and it almost becomes mundane to a point. Everyone's different, and it'll be different for you, but I would definitely prefer this over anything else, so that's why I keep doing it. But I don't know, it's still very exciting, and it's not an office job for sure, which I would loathe for sure. So but yeah, that's just my thoughts on the trailer skid rig situation. I don't know. I don't want to pull a trailer every day. I have a pulling trailer right now, but it's my car trailer. But pulling a trailer every day I don't know, man. Of course, it'd be different if I could see out the back window of this dang thing all the time. I don't know. In the beginning, you got your half-ton truck or something. That can make a lot of sense too, to have a trailer, especially if you have a bigger machine to get for cheap or something. Sometimes you can get an SA for a couple $1,000 or something, or you know what I mean. It doesn't have to be an SA. It could be a big 40, Miller Big 40 or 20 or whatever you can get your hands on. It's in general, actually. And for lead, I would suggest eBay. I can't find any cheaper, good quality lead than eBay. I've bought lead off of eBay for years. I don't know, probably 8 or 9 years. So it's been the good quality stuff, and it's been the cheapest price I could find. So I would advocate for that as well. So yeah, good luck.